It's every teenager's dream. A house to yourself, no rules, and complete freedom. But for Emma, one seemingly peaceful evening turned into her worst nightmare. A stalker, strange sounds, and a chilling twist left her questioning if she'd ever feel safe again. What really happened that night? This is her story. It was a quiet Friday night in the suburbs. The street was unusually still, with most of the neighbors away for the weekend. 16-year-old Emma had begged her parents to let her stay home while they went on their anniversary trip. She assured them she was responsible enough to handle being alone. The house felt emptier than usual as Emma lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. A bowl of popcorn sat on the table beside her. She texted her best friend, Lily. "Finally, no parents for the whole weekend. Want to FaceTime?" Lily responded almost immediately. "Lucky you. I'm stuck babysitting. Call me if you get scared, haha." Emma laughed. "Scared? Please. It's just me and Netflix tonight." The clock struck 9 p.m. Emma locked the doors, turned off the porch light, and dimmed the living room lamps, creating a cozy atmosphere. She started a horror movie marathon, relishing the peace and quiet. But little did she know, her peaceful night was about to spiral into chaos. The first hour went by uneventfully. Emma was halfway through her second movie when she heard a soft thud from the backyard. She paused the movie and sat up, heart racing slightly. It's probably just the wind, she told herself. The autumn breeze had been strong that evening. She got up to check the back door, peeking through the curtain. Nothing. She locked the door again, just in case, and returned to the couch. But as she settled in, her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "You're alone, aren't you?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. She stared at the screen, unsure whether to respond. Finally, she typed, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Someone who's watching." She froze, her eyes darting around the room. Every shadow suddenly seemed menacing. Emma called Lily. "Lily, someone just texted me something really creepy." "It's probably just a prank," Lily said, trying to reassure her. "Do you want me to come over?" Before Emma could answer, the landline phone in the kitchen rang. She didn't even know the landline still worked. "Hold on, Lily," Emma said, switching over to the landline. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. A low, distorted voice whispered, "I'm closer than you think." Emma slammed the phone down and ran to the kitchen window. The backyard was empty, but the eerie silence felt oppressive. Emma double-checked all the locks on the doors and windows, her heart pounding. She grabbed a kitchen knife and kept her phone close. Trying to calm down, she texted Lily, "I'm really freaking out. I think someone's outside." "Lily, stay calm. Call the police." Before Emma could dial, the power suddenly went out. The house plunged into darkness, and Emma's phone flashlight became her only source of light. That's when she heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the back porch. She froze, gripping the knife tightly. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Then came the sound of the back door handle jiggling. "Who's there?" Emma shouted, her voice trembling. The handle stopped moving. Silence, and then bang! The sound of someone pounding on the back door made her jump. Emma ran upstairs, barricading herself in her bedroom. She texted Lily again. "They're trying to get in. What do I do?" "Lily, hide. I'm calling the police for you." Emma hid in her closet, trying to muffle her breathing. From her hiding spot, she could hear the faint creak of the front door opening. Someone was inside the house. Emma stayed perfectly still, her heart hammering in her chest. She peeked through the slats of the closet door and saw a tall man in a dark hoodie slowly walking into her room. He moved with purpose, scanning the room. Emma held her breath, clutching the knife so tightly her knuckles turned white. The man opened drawers, checked under the bed, and then stood in front of the closet. Emma's entire body froze as he reached for the door handle. But before he could open it, the sound of sirens blared in the distance. The man stiffened, then quickly left the room. Emma waited until she heard the sound of the front door slamming shut. She bolted out of the closet and ran downstairs. The police arrived minutes later. Emma ran out to meet them, shaking and tearful. She explained everything that had happened, from the creepy texts to the intruder entering the house. The officers searched the property but found no sign of the man. However, what they discovered in the basement sent chills down everyone's spines. Hidden behind a false wall was a small room filled with surveillance equipment. Cameras had been installed throughout the house, tiny, almost invisible. They had been recording Emma's every move for weeks. The police also found a notebook filled with disturbing entries. Each page detailed Emma's daily activities. Friday 9 p.m., watching movies. Sitting on the couch, alone. Emma realized with horror that the stalker had been planning this for a long time. As the officers escorted her to safety, Emma glanced back at the house one last time. In the shadows of the tree line, she saw him, a tall figure in a hoodie, watching her. Emma moved away shortly after that night, but the stalker was never caught. And to this day she still wonders, was he watching her before she even knew it? And who might he be watching now? It was a weekend like any other, or so Alex thought. He and his girlfriend, Emma, had planned a quiet night together at his family's remote countryside home. Nestled deep in the woods, the house was isolated, surrounded by tall trees and endless shadows. For Alex, it was the perfect opportunity to spend some quality time with Emma, away from the noise and distractions of the city. What he didn't know was that this night would haunt them both forever. The evening began innocently enough. They cooked dinner together, laughed over inside jokes, and sat by the fireplace sharing stories. But as the night deepened, an unsettling stillness enveloped the house. The kind of silence that made every creak of the old wooden floors echo like a scream. The couple shrugged it off, attributing it to their imaginations. But as they would soon discover, something far more sinister lurked in the shadows. The house had a history. Alex's grandparents had built it decades ago, and it had remained in the family ever since. But the locals spoke in hushed tones about the land it was built on. Rumors of strange disappearances and whispers in the woods had persisted for years. Alex had always dismissed these stories as superstitions, but Emma wasn't so sure. As they unpacked for the weekend, she couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. "Are you sure about this place?" Emma asked, her voice tinged with unease. "It's just an old house," Alex replied with a smile. "Nothing to worry about." Still, Emma's eyes lingered on the darkened corners of the living room, where the light from the fireplace didn't quite reach. It started just after midnight. They were watching a horror movie, curled up on the couch when they heard it, a faint knock at the front door. Alex paused the movie and looked at Emma, who froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Yeah, probably the wind," Alex said, though his voice betrayed his doubt. The knock came again, louder this time. 3 deliberate taps. Alex got up, his heart pounding, and approached the door. He peered through the peephole but saw nothing, just the inky blackness of the night. Hesitating for a moment, he opened the door slightly and peeked outside. The porch was empty. "No one's there," he said, shutting the door and locking it. But Emma noticed the tension in his shoulders as he returned to the couch. The knocks didn't return, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Emma suggested going to bed, hoping sleep would chase away the tension. They went upstairs to the master bedroom and locked the door. As they lay in bed, the house seemed to come alive. The floorboards creaked as if someone was walking down the hallway. The sound of faint whispers drifted through the walls, too quiet to make out. "Do you hear that?" Emma asked, clutching Alex's arm. "It's an old house. It makes noises," Alex said, though he couldn't explain the whispers. Then Emma gasped. She pointed to the window. A shadow moved outside, just beyond the glass. Alex jumped out of bed and yanked the curtains closed. "Probably an animal," he muttered, trying to convince himself as much as Emma. But Emma wasn't buying it. "That was not an animal, Alex. That was a person." Unable to sleep, Alex decided to check the house. He grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs, leaving Emma in the bedroom with a heavy wooden bat for protection. As he searched the ground floor, the whispers grew louder. They seemed to be coming from below, the basement. Alex hesitated at the top of the basement stairs. The door was slightly ajar, and the darkness below seemed to swallow the light from his flashlight. Taking a deep breath, he descended the creaky wooden steps. The air grew colder with each step, and the whispers became more distinct. It was as if multiple voices were speaking at once, their words overlapping in a chaotic symphony. When he reached the bottom, his flashlight flickered. He swung it around, illuminating the old furniture and forgotten boxes. Then he saw it, a figure standing in the corner, facing the wall. It was still, unnaturally still, as if it were a statue. "Who's there?" Alex demanded, his voice trembling. The figure slowly turned its head. Its face was pale, with hollow black eyes that seemed to pierce through him. Alex stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. The basement was plunged into darkness. He scrambled up the stairs, slamming the door shut behind him. Alex burst into the bedroom, his face pale and his hands shaking. "We need to leave. Now." Emma didn't argue. She grabbed her phone and the bat, and they made their way downstairs. As they reached the front door, they heard a loud crash from the kitchen. Something, or someone, was in the house. They sprinted to the car, not daring to look back. Alex fumbled with the keys, finally starting the engine. As they drove away, Emma glanced in the rearview mirror. The shadowy figure stood on the porch, watching them. But it wasn't alone. More figures emerged from the woods, their hollow eyes glowing in the darkness. Alex and Emma never returned to the house. They tried to forget that night, but the whispers followed them. Late at night, when the world was silent, they would hear faint taps on their windows. And in the shadows, they always felt eyes watching. The house still stands, its secrets buried deep within its walls. But the question remains, who or what was watching Alex and Emma that night? And why did it let them go? Perhaps some stories are better left untold. The suburban neighborhood was always quiet, especially during the colder months when families preferred to stay indoors. Jack, a 20-year-old college student, was looking forward to a weekend of solitude. His parents were visiting relatives for the weekend, leaving Jack in charge of the house. It was a responsibility he didn't mind. He'd have the house to himself, free to play games, binge movies, and enjoy some peace and quiet. But things took an unexpected turn when his neighbor, Evelyn, knocked on his door that evening. Evelyn was in her early 30s, with a mysterious air about her. She lived alone in the house next door, keeping to herself most of the time. Jack rarely saw her, and when he did, she was either tending to her garden or heading to her car, always avoiding small talk. That night, Evelyn's knock set off a chain of events that would plunge Jack into a nightmare he couldn't escape. It was around 8 p.m. when Jack heard the knock. The house was eerily quiet, with only the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the air. Curious, he opened the door to find Evelyn standing there, clutching a flashlight. Her expression was tense. "Jack," she began, her voice soft but urgent. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I think someone is trying to break into my house. Could you come take a look?" Jack hesitated. He wasn't exactly the hero type, but he couldn't just turn her away. Sure, let me grab my phone," he said, stepping back inside to retrieve it. As he followed Evelyn to her house, the unease in her voice lingered in his mind. The streetlights cast long shadows on the pavement, and the cold wind rustled the bare branches of the trees. Something about the night felt off, as though the shadows themselves were watching. Evelyn's house was completely dark. She explained that her power had gone out about an hour ago, which only heightened her fear. Jack's phone flashlight illuminated the living room as they stepped inside. The place was neat but sparsely decorated, with an air of emptiness that made Jack's skin crawl. "I heard noises upstairs," Evelyn whispered, her eyes darting toward the staircase. "Footsteps. But when I checked, there was no one there." Jack swallowed hard. "Okay, let's take a look." They climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking under their weight. At the top, Jack shone his light down the hallway. The doors to the bedrooms were all closed. He opened each one cautiously, finding nothing but neatly made beds and empty closets. When they reached the last door, Evelyn grabbed his arm. "This one," she said, her voice trembling. "I heard the noise coming from here." Jack turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room was empty, save for a single chair in the corner. But as he scanned the room, his light caught something that made his blood run cold. Muddy footprints leading from the window to the door. "Evelyn," he whispered, "someone's been here." Before they could react, a loud bang echoed from downstairs. Evelyn stifled a scream as Jack quickly turned off the flashlight. They stood in the dark, listening. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the house, growing louder with each passing second. "We need to get out of here," Jack whispered. Evelyn nodded, and they began to creep toward the stairs. But as they reached the top step, the footsteps stopped. The house fell into an unsettling silence. "Jack," Evelyn whispered, barely audible. "What if they're waiting for us?" Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He strained his ears, trying to detect any sound. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement in the living room below. A figure stood near the window, silhouetted against the faint glow of the streetlights. The figure wasn't moving, just standing there, watching. "Back upstairs," Jack whispered, pulling Evelyn toward the hallway. They ducked into the nearest bedroom and locked the door. Jack pressed his ear to the door, listening intently. After a moment, the sound of footsteps resumed, this time heading up the stairs. Jack's mind raced. They were trapped, and whoever was in the house was closing in. He scanned the room for anything they could use to defend themselves. His eyes landed on a heavy lamp on the nightstand. "Take this," he whispered, handing it to Evelyn. "If they come in, hit them with everything you've got." Evelyn's hands trembled as she gripped the lamp. Jack picked up a metal rod from the closet and positioned himself near the door. The footsteps stopped just outside. The doorknob rattled. "Who's there?" Jack demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. There was no response. Instead, the door shuddered as if someone were throwing their weight against it. Evelyn let out a muffled sob, and Jack tightened his grip on the rod. Just as the door seemed ready to give way, the sound of sirens pierced the air. The banging stopped. Heavy footsteps retreated down the stairs, and the front door slammed shut. When the police arrived, they searched the house but found no sign of the intruder. The muddy footprints led to the woods behind Evelyn's home, but disappeared among the trees. The officers assured them they'd patrol the area, but couldn't promise much else. Jack stayed with Evelyn that night, too shaken to return home. They barricaded themselves in the living room, keeping the lights on until morning. Neither of them slept. In the days that followed, strange things continued to happen. Evelyn found her garden tools rearranged, and Jack discovered scratches on the fence separating their properties. It became clear that whoever had entered her house that night wasn't finished with them. Part 6, the final confrontation. A week later, Evelyn called Jack in a panic. "He's back," she said, her voice trembling. "I saw him in the backyard." Jack grabbed a flashlight and hurried over. Together, they searched the property, but found no sign of the man. Just as they were about to give up, they heard it, a faint tapping sound coming from the basement window. Jack and Evelyn exchanged a terrified glance. Gathering their courage, they descended into the basement. The air was damp and cold, and the single light bulb cast eerie shadows on the walls. As they reached the bottom step, the tapping stopped. "Hello?" Jack called out, his voice echoing in the confined space. Suddenly, the light bulb flickered and went out. In the darkness, they heard the sound of breathing, low and raspy. Jack swung the flashlight around, its beam cutting through the blackness. The light landed on a figure crouched in the corner, its face pale and eyes gleaming with malice. The intruder lunged at them, and Jack swung the flashlight with all his might. The man stumbled back, giving them just enough time to run upstairs and lock the basement door. They called the police, who arrived moments later. This time, they caught the man, a drifter who had been living in the crawl space beneath Evelyn's house. The drifter was arrested, but the trauma lingered. Jack and Evelyn grew closer in the aftermath, finding comfort in each other's company. They couldn't shake the feeling that their quiet neighborhood would never feel safe again. To this day, Jack avoids staying home alone, especially at night, and every now and then, when the wind rattles the windows or a shadow shifts unexpectedly, he remembers the pale face in the basement and wonders if true evil ever really goes away. The weekend was supposed to be uneventful. Kyle, a reserved 18-year-old, had no problem being left home alone for the weekend, while his dad and stepmom went out of town. But there was a catch this time. His 16-year-old stepsister, Mia, would be staying with him. Their relationship wasn't exactly close. Mia was lively and outspoken, the complete opposite of Kyle. But this wasn't going to be a problem. They'd keep to their separate spaces, and the weekend would pass without incident. At least, that's what Kyle thought. The house was a modern, spacious home located on the edge of the woods, a place where silence came naturally. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the isolation of the house became more pronounced. What started as a quiet night of streaming movies and scrolling through phones quickly took a turn neither Kyle nor Mia could have ever imagined. It was late on Friday evening, and a thunderstorm had rolled in. Rain lashed against the windows, and occasional flashes of lightning illuminated the living room where Kyle and Mia sat. They had decided to watch a horror movie to pass the time. The irony of watching something scary while alone in a house on a stormy night wasn't lost on them. Halfway through the movie, Mia nudged Kyle. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Kyle paused the movie, annoyed. "See what?" "Out there, by the tree line. I thought I saw someone," she said, her voice tinged with unease. She pointed to the large glass sliding door that led to the backyard. Kyle sighed and got up, peering outside. The storm made it difficult to see anything beyond the deck. "It's just the rain messing with the light," he said, brushing off her concern. But as he returned to his seat, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had moved out there. Something too big to be an animal. As the movie's climax approached, the screen suddenly went dark. The hum of electricity ceased, and the house was plunged into silence, save for the pounding rain. "Great," Kyle muttered, reaching for his phone to use as a flashlight. "Power's out." "Do we have candles or something?" Mia asked, already pulling her knees to her chest. Kyle nodded. "Yeah, in the kitchen. Stay here. I'll grab them." Using his phone's light, Kyle navigated through the dark house. The storm outside made the atmosphere feel oppressive, each creak of the floorboards amplified in the silence. As he opened the kitchen drawer to retrieve the candles, he heard it, a faint tapping sound coming from the front door. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. The tapping came again, louder this time. Summoning his courage, he crept to the front door and looked through the peephole. There was nothing there. Kyle returned to the living room with the candles, trying to act as if everything was normal. He didn't want to scare Mia, who was already on edge. He lit a couple of candles and placed them on the coffee table. "Hear anything weird while I was gone?" he asked casually. Mia hesitated. "I thought I heard footsteps upstairs, but I'm probably imagining things." Kyle laughed nervously. "Yeah, must be the house settling." But deep down, he knew better. The house was new. There was no reason for it to creak like an old haunted mansion. He glanced toward the staircase, the shadows dancing at the edge of the candlelight. For a moment, he thought he saw something move at the top of the stairs. He blinked, and it was gone. As the night wore on, the storm showed no sign of letting up. Mia suggested they sleep in the living room together, where the light from the candles made the darkness feel less oppressive. Kyle agreed, fetching blankets from upstairs. While grabbing the blankets from the linen closet, he noticed something odd. The door to the guest bedroom at the end of the hall was slightly open. It was strange because no one used that room. His dad had locked it months ago, saying it was for storage. But now, the door was ajar, revealing nothing but darkness inside. Kyle approached the door cautiously. "Hello?" he called, his voice barely above a whisper. Silence. He pushed the door open wider, the hinges creaking. The flashlight beam from his phone illuminated the room. It was empty, just as it had been the last time he saw it. But as he turned to leave, he noticed something chilling, muddy footprints on the floor, leading from the window to the door. Kyle rushed back downstairs, his heart racing. He decided not to tell Mia about the footprints. She was already scared enough. Instead, he locked all the doors and windows, double-checking each one. But no matter how secure the house felt, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. At around 3 a.m., Mia nudged him awake. "Kyle, someone's outside," she whispered, her voice trembling. Kyle sat up, his eyes darting to the sliding glass door. In the dim light of the candles, he saw a figure standing just beyond the glass. It was a man, tall and motionless, with his face obscured by the shadows. Kyle's breath caught in his throat as the man slowly raised a hand and tapped on the glass. Mia let out a muffled scream, and Kyle grabbed the nearest object, a heavy lamp, holding it like a weapon. "Who are you? What do you want?" he shouted. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it tilted its head as if studying them. Then, without warning, it turned and walked into the woods, disappearing into the darkness. Morning finally came, bringing a sense of relief. The storm had passed and sunlight streamed through the windows. Kyle and Mia decided to leave the house and stay at a friend's place for the rest of the weekend. But as they packed their bags, Mia found something that made her blood run cold. On the coffee table, where the candles had burned through the night, was a note written in smudged ink. It read, "I'll see you again soon." Kyle's mind raced. How had someone gotten inside? They had locked all the doors and windows, and then it hit him. The guest bedroom, the footprints, the window. Someone had been in the house with them the entire night. Kyle and Mia never stayed at the house again. The police found no signs of forced entry, and the footprints in the guest room had been wiped away by the time they arrived. But Kyle and Mia knew the truth. They weren't imagining things. Someone, or something, had been watching them, waiting in the shadows. And the worst part? It wasn't over. The note promised that much. To this day, Kyle and Mia can't explain what happened that weekend. But every now and then, when the wind howls and the rain falls, they swear they hear faint tapping at the windows, as if someone is trying to get back in. Thank you for watching. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to leave a like and share it with others who love a good scare. Make sure to subscribe to Han Untold and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next creepy tale. Your support helps us keep uncovering the darkest and most haunting stories. Have a story you'd like us to cover? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are closer than you think. Sweet dreams.